They had to say something to the people who had prepared the cuisine for them, because it was compelling to them to consider all of the art that goes into making of a biscuit for a morning breakfast for a child. The awl and knee strap, the pint measure and the quart measure, the counter and stool, the writing pen, obviously the art that Whitman loved, the journalism and writing, of quill or metal, the making of all sorts of edged tools, the brewery, brewing, the malt, the vats, everything that's done by brewers, winemakers, vinegar makers, leather dressing, coach making, boiler making, rope twisting, distilling, sign painting, lime burning, cotton picking, electroplating, electrotyping, stereotyping. These were all, of course, new sciences of Whitman's day. Stave machines, planing machines, reaping machines, plowing machines, thrashing machines, steam wagons. His joining at the very end, the new technologies. The cart of the carman, the omnibus, the ponderous dray, pyrotechny, letting off colored fireworks at night, fancy figures and jests. And now to take us to Upton Sinclair's Jungle, which is of course 1906. Beef on the butcher's stall, the slaughterhouse of the butcher in his killing clothes, the pen of live pork, the killing hammer, the hog hook, the scalder's tub, gutting, the gutter's cleaver, the packer's maul, and the plenteous winter work of pork packing. Now he jumps to somewhere else. Flour works, grinding of wheat, rye, maize, rice, the barrels and the half and quarter barrels, the loaded barges and the high piles on the wharves and levees, the men and the work of the men on ferries, railroads, coasters, fish boats, canals. A number of readers of this poem, especially when they live in urban environments where they can just walk out their door and start seeing lots and lots of people, begin to identify with all of the different occupations that are right there in front of them. And it's quite a majestic display. And Whitman obviously wants to play that game with the hourly routine of your own or any man's life. I think the word routine is central, because Whitman understands that religion is really just rhythms, right? In other words, religion's got nothing to do originally with the idea of worship. It has to do with repetition, so I can brush my teeth religiously. In other words, it's all about patterns and routines. And our lives are constructed around these. And of course, all of the routines and rhythms of all of the lives of all of the other people around us who construct this thing called civilization. And it's significant. So he says it, the hourly routine of your own or any man's life, the shop, yard, store, or factory, these shows, and now he's coming to the end of the poem, these shows all near you by day and night, and then the dash, workmen, exclamation point, whoever you are, your daily life, exclamation point. In other words, we couldn't do it, right? So for example, I'm rushing into the emergency room to save my life. Of course, I'm hoping that I have expertise there on the part of the medicinal helpers. And yet I'm in a building that was constructed by people just as vital and just as important. All of the technologies that I'll be hooked to obviously had to be created and built by human minds, human ingenuity, people I'll never know. This matrix of civilization for Whitman is fascinating. In that and them, the heft of the heaviest, that is to say the most important, and then again the dash. In that and them, far more than you estimated. And then, paradoxically, and far less also. In other words, there's so much that has to go in to building this thing for Whitman called America and civilization. And then just notice 5 times now the in them. In them realities for you and me. In them poems for you and me. In them not yourself, you and your soul enclose all things regardless of estimation. In them the development good. We're going to come back to this in passage 6 in a second. In them all themes, hints, possibilities. In other words, Whitman says, I couldn't do what I do if it wasn't for you. I do not affirm that what you see beyond is futile. I do not advise you to stop. I do not say leadings you thought great are not great. But I say that none lead to greater than these lead to. Now that is a compelling idea. It's saying, I'm not going to de-emphasize the significance of certain creators. Obviously, Whitman himself is a creator. But he says, I couldn't do it without everyone. For Whitman, of course, he's writing with a pen or quill that obviously was created for him, built for him, or a pencil that was built for him by other hands he'll never know. And in this moment, we come back to that line that was so impressionable for Whitman from from Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. What is it that makes a great man's life? Those little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. It is significant, I think, as students, and I think as thinkers and as readers and as people, for us to constantly reverence the labor of all those who have provided us this amazing life we get to live. Now, he finishes this poem after that long catalog with just a few more lines. Will you seek afar off? Stop looking elsewhere, right? You surely come back at last in things best known to you, finding the best, or as good as the best. In folks nearest to you, finding the sweetest, strongest, lovingest happiness. Knowledge not in another place, but this place. Not for another hour, but this hour. It's a compelling idea. Stop looking so far afield for your joy and for your happiness. The chair you're sitting in was constructed by someone. Be grateful for that. What is it that you built as you are contributing to civilization? This will be his challenge. Man in the first you see or touch, always in friend, brother, nighest neighbor, woman and mother, sister, wife, the popular taste in employments taking precedence in poems or anywhere, you workmen, and workmen of these states, having your own divine and strong life, and all else giving place to men and women like you. Now this like you formulation will be the last two words of this poem, so let's finish. 8 times now with when. And this is an interesting philosophic speculation that he plays with. When the song sings instead of the singer, when the script preaches instead of the preacher, when the pulpit descends and goes instead of the carver that carved the supporting desk, when I can touch the body of works by night or day, what an interesting phraseology, right? And when they touch my body back again, when a university course convinces like a slumbering woman and child convince. What an amazing image, right? When the minted gold in the vault smiles like the night watchman's daughter. This is for me, some of Whitman's most compelling imagery. When warranty deeds loaf, and we know about his love of the word loaf, right? In chairs opposite and are my friendly companions, I intend to reach them my hand and make as much of them as I do of men and women like you. Now this idea, of course, of hands takes us back to the final lines of Milton's Paradise Lost. What a beautiful way to remind all of us that we're all in this project together because we're all builders. We're all builders of something. Yeah, we're consumers, but we're also builders. And we have to be builders. We have to be making things. And not all those things are, of course, physical. Many of them are metaphysical, we might say. Let's just finish now at 2a. Well, obviously, there's this need for Whitman and for the rest of us to respect the dignity of labor. More particularly, notice we're going to work backwards from the stuff made to the work itself to finally the worker, the laborer, the genius, the creator. And we want to obviously celebrate that creator. At 2b, obviously the repetition and the cataloging matter. At 3a, well, we've mentioned a number of titles. Think about Marx's Communist Manifesto, which is again trying to attempt to have a certain perspective on labor. That's 1848. We're looking at a poem written in 1855, 7 years later. And some of you will read a whole lot of Marxist thought in this. Some of you will say, Whitman is somehow taking Marxism to a whole nother level, to a spiritual level. And I'll let you guys kind of think about how you play that one out. At 3b, how are we going to own a poem like this? What are your favorites who made this, right? I mean, for some of you, it's something as simple as the pen you're holding in your hand, or the computer that you're playing on, or the toothbrush that you brush your teeth with. For others of us, this is a more compelling question, right? We have to kind of think long and hard, because we start walking around, we look at everything, and we notice that it's it came from somewhere. And so much of what we're looking at came from I mean, even Ruthie's tree, which is totally natural, and yet it was planted there by Ruthie, put there with purpose and intentionality and love and concern. And, you know, she took care of that tree when it was a sapling for a long time before it finally became the tree that it now is today. Finally, how is this kind of reading changing or evolving your idea of labor and civilization and the joy of both? Well, from here we now move on to one of the very last songs of the psalm section of Leaves of Grass, Song of the Rolling Earth. I hope that you're being challenged here. It's wonderful stuff that Whitman can awaken us to if we're willing to hear him. Thank you.